Hello, do you have the Honeywell programmer and every time you go to use it you touch a button and then suddenly the screen will go blank and then it takes you back to that home screen where you then got to put in the year, put in the month, put in the day and then finally the time. If that's what's happening to your programmer, then in this video I'm going to show you how we can fix that fault and then it's not going to go back to that home screen again. So I'm going to show you in an easy to follow step-by-step process of how we take this program apart, fix that bad connection, because that's all it is at the end of the day. It's just a bad connection, and then we're going to put it all back together again, and then the program is going to be working absolutely fine. So you'll then be able to use all the buttons, make any adjustments you want to, knowing that it's not going to go back to that annoying home screen again. Just before I show you how to fix that fault, I want to quickly let you know that I've made a separate video all about how to set up and use this programmer. So after you fix that fault, if you want to know a little bit more about how to set it up with a more detailed video, then of course you can click on the links above here now or down in the description. Also, a lot of my customers say to me that they don't want to use any of the programming. All they want to do is turn the heating on and off. Well, I want to let you know I've made a simple to follow easy video on how you can just use one button to turn your heating on and off. So if you want to watch that video, again, you'll find it in the links above here or down in the description. Right, now let's get on with showing you how to fix this fault. So here's my Honeywell T3R, and it doesn't matter whether you've got the hardwired version or whether you've got the wireless version. This fix also works on the Honeywell T4 and the T4R. Although taking the T4s apart is slightly different to the T3s. So I've made a separate video on how you do that. But with all these programmers, you can still get the same problem. So what I'm finding generally happens with these programmers is when you go to change something, maybe you want to change the temperature, or maybe you want to turn the heating on and off. When you're doing that, all of a sudden the screen will go blank, and then it would go back to its start screen again. And of course, it's not supposed to do that. And there we are, it's gone blank when I'm adjusting something, and now it's gone back to that start screen again. And then you have to go through the whole process of setting the year, and then you got to set the month, and then set the time again. And again, you shouldn't be having to do that. So if you are doing that, you have a fault with the programmer. Now, if your program is less than a year old, you could take it back and get it replaced. But if it's over a year old, then you're going to have to either live with the fault or I will show you how you can easily fix it. And sometimes it's just easy to fix it yourself rather than go for the whole palaver of trying to send it back and get a new one. So here's our programmer and we're going to have to take it apart. So the first thing we're going to want to do is just remove the stand from the back of it. So we just turn it upside down, put our two thumbs against the bottom of the stand like that, and then push down against the stand. And then it should just unclip and then we can just lift it away. I thought I'd just add, you can see how temperamental this unit is because by the time I've taken the bracket off, the screen's gone blank again. And there we go, look, it's gone back to the start screen again. Very frustrating. If your programmer is mounted on a wall, then all you need to do is to hold the programmer, push it upwards, you'll hear a click, and then you can lift it away like that. If you have the Honeywell T3, this unit will be on a wall and it is wired in. And you'll only need to remove the front panel, which I'm going to show you how to do in just a minute. Now we're going to want to remove the front cover. So we first of all just want to open it up and then holding it like this with our thumb and finger on the cover, we just want to lift it forwards and then unclip one side at a time. And there we go, that's the second one. Here's a slightly better angle. You can see how they just clip on like that. Now do be careful with them because they are only plastic. Now we're going to want to remove the battery cover on the bottom here. And all we do is just put our fingers on there, slide it down and it just unclips like that. Now sometimes this cover can be a little tight. You might need to push something sharp in the edge just to start it off so you can then easily remove it. We can then remove the two AA batteries. And there we go, that's the batteries now removed. Now the first thing that we could try doing is just tightening up the battery connections. So inside the unit here, we got the battery connection just there and we got the other one just there. Now that one is fixed on the left hand side, but the one on the right should be bent outwards so that when we put the batteries in, it makes a nice tight connection. So the first thing we could try doing is just to bend that one there out a bit. So just get a screwdriver, put it behind the little piece of metal there and just bend it outwards. Just put it forwards so it makes the connections nice and tight between the two batteries. You can see I'm just bending it forwards there, Don't go too crazy with it, because obviously we do need to get the batteries back in again and we don't want to snap that off. So just give it a little tweak and bend it outwards. Now, if you're not a DIY person and you don't even have a screwdriver, you could just use a little kitchen knife like this. So I'm just demonstrating that it's possible just to bend it forwards with a little knife here. Now, I would almost say it goes without saying, make sure both the terminals are clean. Obviously, if the unit is new, both terminals should be perfectly clean and the batteries should have been new when you got the unit. And the batteries should last you somewhere between 3 and 5 years. Now you can see I've just replaced the batteries, and when I'm pushing that battery in, you can see there's a nice spring there. So both batteries are nice and tight in there. I always like to rotate batteries like this so I know that they're going to have a good connection. Now making that adjustment to that battery connection might have sorted your problem out. So you could just try that and see if your T3R is now working okay. But most likely it hasn't fixed the problem, and we're going to have to do just a little bit more to get the programmer working properly again. We're now going to need to take the T3R apart. So to do this, we need to release the 2 clips holding the front panel to the back panel. And you can see just there, there's a little arrow and it's pointing to one of the clips. There's also a little picture of a screwdriver telling you that's what to use. And then on the other side, you've got another arrow pointing to the other clip, which is holding the front panel to the back panel. So now we just need to take our screwdriver or kitchen knife and just push it into the slot just there where the arrow is, and just lever it downwards. And that will then release the clip. You can see how that one there is released. Then we do the same on the other side. So just pop our screwdriver into the little gap just there where the arrow is pointing. Lever it downwards and hopefully it will release the clip for you. You can see, I can now see the little grey clip, so I know that both the retaining clips are now released. Now it's just a case of lifting the front cover upwards, and it kind of hinges at the top. So you lift the bottom part up and then it hinges like that, and then it just lifts away. This can be a little tight, but as long as the bottom is unclipped and you're hinging it upwards, it should be fine. And there we go, I've now released the top panel from the back panel. Now it's this front panel here that we are interested in. Now do not remove this piece of paper, it is there for a reason, as it says, a do not remove insulator. But if you are curious and you're wondering what is behind this piece of paper, there you go, I'll show you. And you've got all these chips on here, and the idea is this piece of paper is going to stop you from touching those chips, because any static electricity which you may have on yourself, when you touch those chips, you can short them out and actually destroy the chips. So that is why this is covered up. So do be really careful with this circuit board. Now we need to remove the circuit board from the front panel, and the circuit board is held in by these 4 clips just here. So then all we need to do is to get our screwdriver and just push it against the retaining clip just on the side there. And as we push against it, you just want to try and lift up on the circuit board so the retaining clip doesn't just lock it back in position again. Now these can be a little tricky, so take your time and just do this gently. So gently push against the clip, carefully lift up the circuit board, and there we go. Look, that one has now released. I can now do the same with the other one. Just push against the clip and just gently lift it there. Again, taking my time, push it against the clip just like that. And then the circuit board hopefully is just going to release up a bit. That one's been a bit more stubborn. But there we go. That's that one done. Now I can do the 2 on the other side. So now I'm just going to turn it around because I'm right-handed, because it makes it a lot easier for me to just push these little clips in and then lift up on the circuit board. So here I am on that 3rd clip. Again, just pushing it in gently and then lifting up on the circuit board. That's now that one released. Now just to show you, could just use your kitchen knife. Okay, I'm using my kitchen knife here, just pushing in on that clip. And again, I can just lift up on the circuit board. And there we go. That's that done. So that's our circuit board now released, and it should just lift off, but we do need to just be aware of these 2 little clips at the bottom here. These are just holding it in place. So when we lift it up, we just got to slide it forward slightly, so we're sliding it out of those 2 clips. And there we go. So that's the circuit board now removed. Now do be careful with this circuit board. Like I said, try just to hold it by the edges, because that way you're not going to go touching any of the chips. Now let's take a look at the front of this circuit board. We've got our 5 switch connections just here. These are what the buttons on the front panel connect onto. Then we have our 2 power connections, And these are the two connections that we are interested in on the circuit board. Now these two power connections are where we are getting our bad connection and why the unit keeps restarting. You can see there's a little black dot on each square, and that's where the connection has been made. Now let's take a closer look at this front panel. We have our buttons here when they would just fall out, so make sure that they don't fall out and you don't lose them. We've also got the 3 buttons down here, making up the 5 button connections on the circuit board. Now just here we have the 2 power connectors that connect onto the circuit board. You can see we've got one just here and we've got one over here. And these are the 2 connectors which are giving us all the trouble. You can see how they would line up with the circuit board connections. Now these little power connectors just lift on and off. You can see how they just slot down in there like that. Now this is our battery connection point, and just here is where the circuit board makes its connection. Now to fix our bad connection, all we need to do is make a slight adjustment to these little power connectors. So I'll get my screwdriver and I'm just going to put it underneath the little tag here and just lift it up. We want to just bend it up a bit so that when we put the circuit board back in again, it pushes down really tightly onto that little piece of metal and makes a really good sound connection. After I've bent it up a bit, I just want to clean the very end of the springy part here, because sometimes you can get a little bit of dirt building up. So I'm just scraping the top there with my screwdriver to make sure it is perfectly clean and we're going to get that good connection with the circuit board. Once again, if you don't have that screwdriver, then you can just use your little kitchen knife, just scrape off the end here and also use it to bend up the connector. I'm also going to give the battery connection point a bit of a clean, again to make sure that we get a really good connection. After I finish cleaning it, I can just slip it back into its correct position like that. So that was all done and it's ready to go. Now I can take the other one out and do exactly the same again. Once again, you can see how it slips out nice and easily. Now this connector also has the battery terminal on it, so I can just bend that one out also, so it makes a good connection with the battery. Now I'm just cleaning the terminal that goes onto the circuit board, and then once again I'm going to bend it out so there's a nice tight connection with the circuit board. You see how much I have to bend that out, and when I release it, see it springs back, and I reckon that's a good position like that. So it's nice and springy and make a good connection with the circuit board. I'll also give the battery terminal a bit of a clean also. Then after I've cleaned it all and bent it all out, I can then just slot it back into its position. I'm trying not to touch the terminals with my fingers because I don't want to get any grease on those terminals which I've just cleaned up. And there we go. So now it's all ready to be reassembled. So our battery terminal is nicely bent out and has been cleaned. The circuit board connection point has been bent up to make a good connection. And also the same on the other side here. So this terminal has been bent upwards and it's also been nicely cleaned. Now before we refit the circuit board into the front panel, we just want to clean these connectors here also. You can see there's a little black dot on there. I think that's where there's been a bad connection and maybe a bit of carbon's built up. So I'm just going to scrape over the top. I'm just using my kitchen knife again here just to scrape off that terminal there and try and make that nice and clean so we get a good connection. Obviously you don't have to use a kitchen knife, maybe just use a bit of wet and dry just to give it a little rough surface and make sure that that copper is lovely and clean. So there we go. I think I'm happy with that terminal just there. You can see it's nice and clean now, and that little black dot that was there has completely gone. Now I'm just going to do the same to the other side. Again, you can see there's a little black dot on that copper terminal pad. So I'm going to give that a good old scrape and make sure that that little black dot has completely gone. Now take your time when you're doing this. We're not in any race and we're not trying to scrape it completely away. So we want to be nice and gentle but firm at the same time. I'm also giving it a scrape from different directions so we get that good connection that we are looking for. And there we go. I think I'm happy with that pad now. That's nice and shiny and there's no little black dot there anymore. Now one last thing that you could do before we go put it back together, if you have some pure alcohol or surgical spirit, you could just put a little bit on a tissue and just wipe off the connections on the PCB and on the terminal connections. So I'm just going to give this little terminal connector here a little wipe off, and then I'm going to do the same to the other side. Just give that a little wipe. Now to remove any of my greasy fingers which might have been on there, which again could make a bad connection. And then I'll do the same on the circuit board terminal pads. Just give those a wipe off and make sure they are nice and clean as well. There we are, that was nice and clean and shiny. I do exactly the same with the one on the other side. And there we go, now it's all ready to be put together. I thought I'd just add, you don't have to do this stage of the cleaning. It'll probably work absolutely fine without doing this. Before I show you how to put it all back together again, let me quickly introduce myself. My name's Mark Ballard and I've been a gas register engineer for nearly 30 years. The aim of my channel is to help you with central heating and your plumbing. If you find this video at all useful, then please give me a little bit of feedback by clicking on that thumbs up or clicking on the subscribe. And if you want to receive a notification the next time I upload a help video, you can click on that bell. And of course, share the video with your friends. I'd like to say a really big thank you to everybody who's bought me a cup of coffee and left the donation in my toolbox fund. It is really appreciated and it does really help me to make more videos which will hopefully help you. Oh, and don't forget to check out my website where I've categorized all my videos and I've left links to all the products and parts that I recommend. Now it's just a case of reassembling it. Now I'm just pointing out these two little slots here where the circuit board has to slot into. So what we want to do is to carefully place our circuit board directly on top of the front panel, making sure that we line up all the little retainers. I'm going to make sure that the circuit board lines up with these two retainers just here and the two on the other side as well. Make sure you've got the hole in the circuit board lined up with the plastic cross underneath it. And the same for the hole on the other side, make sure that lines up the cross. And then it's just a case of squeezing the circuit board down onto the front panel, making sure that the retaining clips pop into the position and it holds the circuit board firmly in place. And you can see how both those retaining clips are over the top of the circuit board, holding it in place. Now this little retainer clip here is being a little bit stubborn and it's not going back over the top of the circuit board. So I'm just going to use my screwdriver just to push it like that. So it goes over the top of the circuit board and it holds it in place. There we go. As you can see how that is now over the top of the circuit board. This retainer clip here is also locked into position. And finally, make sure that the circuit board is also locked down underneath these two little retainers here. This one and this one. Now we need to refit the front panel to the back panel. So we need to make sure that these two little points here line up with the back panel, two little lugs just there. So we just place the front panel on top of the back panel like that. So it just hinges a little bit on the top there. And if we look at the side there, you can see how I've got it placed on there like that. So I know those two lugs are lined up. When I'm happy that it's all lined up, then I just push down like that and it just clips into position. And that's it, we're all done. Now for the moment of truth, we can put our batteries back in, the one just there, and then the other one obviously going to fit on the other side. You can see it's nice and springy now, and that pushes down there, so those connections are nice and tight, and then the program is going to come back on, and then I can just quickly run through the menu again, reset the year, reset the month, reset the date, then the time, and then we're all good to go. After you reset it all, you can give it a wiggle, a twist, try pushing some buttons and seeing if the display goes off and goes back to that startup screen. And if it doesn't, you've fixed the problem. Now it's just a case of refitting the battery cover. So put that in position and just push it up so it clicks into its correct position. There we go. Then we can just attach the cover and that just clips down into the two clips. You can see I've got one here and one here. Now this doesn't go straight down, it goes in on an angle like this. So you just want to line them up on a bit of an angle and then put your thumbs on the two hinges and just push down gently on the two hinges. And you'll feel them click into position. And there we go. Do be careful because these are only plastic. And then it folds down nice and neatly. And finally, I can attach the stand to the back of the programmer. That just goes on the back there like that, and you just push it up and it slots into position with a click again. And there we go. That's all done. And now hopefully your programmer is working as good as new. And you're no longer scared to pick it up and make an adjustment in case the whole screen goes off again. So I hope this video has been helpful. Don't forget you can check in the description below where I've got lots of other links to other videos which I've made. including how to set up and operate this programmer, and also the very simple guide on how to use this programmer as well, if all you want to do is just turn your heating on and off. So that's about it then. So if you want to watch my video on 10 ways to reduce your gas bill, you can click on the video just here, and of course you can click on subscribe, you can click on the bell, give me a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and there's always my toolbox friend. Bye for now, and I'll see you next time.